Hello, and welcome to my book podcast where we explore the intriguing pages of How to Live by Sarah Bakewell, delving into the world of Montaigne. I'm just going to read a paragraph from Chapter 2, How to Live. Answer, pay attention. Subheading, starting to write. So today we're focusing on a pivotal moment in Montaigne's life, a writing accident that altered his perspective. The actual incident only lasted a few moments, but what one can do is separate it into three distinct parts that spread out over several years. So number one, you've got Montaigne. He's lying on the ground, clawing at his stomach, experiencing euphoria. So that in itself could be quite odd. Why would he be feeling that? Could it be the actual loss of consciousness? Or is it tied to something else? The question arises, why would he feel a sense of euphoria during that incident, during that particular moment when he's lying on his back, clawing at his stomach? Other than the actual sense of loss of consciousness, could it be a moment of eureka, like an epiphany? Maybe it was linked to a moment of realization, perhaps an epiphany or a philosophical insight that struck him in that unexpected situation. So in the weeks and months following the incident, Montaigne reflects on the experience and he tries to reconcile it with his philosophical readings. So he's reflecting on the experience and trying to reconcile it, connecting it with his philosophical readings, attempting to weave it into the fabric of his philosophical readings. So then fast forward a few years later, and Montaigne isn't merely recounting this incident. Instead, he sits down to write about a bunch of other subjects as well. So basically, the first part of this journey is relatable. Anyone could experience it. The second part, well, that's something a sensitive Renaissance soul might resonate with during that era. But it's the last part that truly makes Montaigne stand out. It makes him unique. Before we carry on with the book, I just want to give a little bit of background information on Michel de Montaigne and also the Renaissance period. So imagine Montaigne as a wise elder from a long time ago who liked thinking and talking about interesting ideas. He had a special way of writing down his thoughts about life, like having a conversation with himself. So then one day he had a horse riding accident that made him feel all sorts of strange things. And then he wrote about it to share his thoughts with others. So Montaigne can be seen like a friendly thinker who wrote stories about what he thought and what he felt. Montaigne lived during the Renaissance period, and the Renaissance was a time of great cultural and intellectual growth in Europe, and Montaigne's life and writings were part of this exciting period. The Renaissance was a historical period that spanned roughly from the 14th to the 17th century in Europe. It marked a significant shift in various aspects of life, including art, literature, science, and philosophy. I'm just going to point out a few key points about the Renaissance period. So number one, a rebirth of knowledge. The term Renaissance means a rebirth in French. This time period saw a revival of interest in classical learning from ancient Greece and Rome. Number two, humanism. There was a renewed emphasis on human achievements, individual potential, and the study of humanities such as literature, history, and philosophy. And number three, artistic flourishing. The Renaissance was known for its remarkable art, with artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael, creating masterpieces that reflected a newfound appreciation for realism and the human form. And fourthly, scientific advancements. Thinkers during the Renaissance made strides in science, astronomy, and mathematics. For example, Galileo, that challenged traditional views. And fifth point, printing press. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg played a crucial role in spreading ideas and knowledge, making information more accessible. And finally, sixth, cultural expansion. Cities like Florence, Rome, and Venice became cultural hubs where ideas thrived and patrons supported the arts and sciences. In summary, the Renaissance was a period of cultural and intellectual revival characterized by a shift toward human-centered perspectives, artistic innovation, and advancements in various fields of knowledge. So basically, imagine the Renaissance like a big, exciting time in history when people started to really love learning about all kinds of cool stuff. They found amazing art, books, and cool ideas from a long time ago. During this time, artists made beautiful paintings like the ones you see in museums. Think of it as a time when everyone said, wow, let's be super smart and creative. People also discovered new things about the world. It was just a really fun and special time for everyone to be smart and creative together. So in essence, picture the Renaissance like a massive let's get smart and creative party that happened in Europe from the 14th to the 17th century. It was a time when everyone suddenly said, hey, let's bring back the cool stuff from the past. It was like a giant cultural recycling project. So artists started making paintings that were sort of like the blockbuster movies of the time. We're talking Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. So Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo, they were creating these incredible paintings, and then other artists were inspired by them, and they sort of started copying that. And you imagine the three were the blockbuster directors of the Renaissance, the cool kids on the artistic block. The paintings were like the Avengers movies of their time, making everyone go, whoa, that's amazing. And now, just like how other filmmakers get inspired by big superhero movies today, other artists in the Renaissance were like, hey, let's try that too. And they started making their own versions of awesome paintings, adding their twists and styles. It was a bit like a creative domino effect. One amazing thing inspired a whole bunch of other awesome things. The Renaissance was basically the original cinematic universe of creativity. Meanwhile, scientists were having a field day. They were like, what if the Earth isn't the center of the universe? And let's discover some gravity business. Think of it as a bunch of nerds having a cosmic brainstorm. And thanks to Johannes Gutenberg and his printing press, it was the Renaissance's version of the internet boom. Information was suddenly flying around like tweets during a trending topic. In a nutshell, the Renaissance was this wild era where everyone was flexing their brains, creating epic art, and dropping some serious knowledge bombs. It's the original OG smart and creative block party that shaped our world. So in a nutshell, picture this era as a massive let's get smart and creative party from the 14th to the 17th century. And who was the wise elder at this cosmic brainstorm? None other than Michel de Montaigne, the OG blogger of his time. Montaigne is often considered the inventor of the essay. He was a wise elder from the Renaissance era. He wrote thoughtful, chatty pieces, sharing his musings about everything under the sun, from deep philosophy to the mundane details of life. Montaigne's essays were like a buffet of ideas. Now let's go back to the Avengers of the Renaissance, like Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael. These artistic superheroes created paintings that rocked the cultural scene. Just like blockbuster movies inspire other filmmakers, these masters inspired a wave of creativity in their time. Montaigne, a wise elder, lived during this Renaissance explosion. He wasn't just about wild horse rides and philosophical ponderings. He was a thinker who kicked off the whole "let's write down what's on our minds" trend. He was the wise elder who shaped intellectual parties with his essays. So he's the wise elder from the Renaissance era and to an era that sparked a creative wildfire. Imagine Montaigne as the cool elder philosopher from way back in the Renaissance era. He was like the OG blogger, but instead of typing away, he wrote down his thoughts in essays, short, chatty pieces where he shared his ideas about life. One day, something wild happened to him, a horse ride accident that made him think a lot. So he wrote about it. But here's the twist. He didn't just write about the crazy horse ride. He wrote about everything. His essays are like a big buffet of thoughts, covering everything from deep philosophy to what he had for breakfast. Montaigne was basically the Renaissance guy who kicked off the whole "let's write down what's on our minds." He made thinking and writing cool, centuries before blogs and podcasts were a thing. So whenever you hear about Montaigne, think of him as the wise, philosophical elder who started the intellectual party with his essays.